My Croatian is very bad. I mangled the pronunciation of the Croatian concentration camp. What is the proper pronunciation?
Jasenovac. Jasenovac.
And take a moment and tell our audience about that concentration camp, because it's not well known.
No, it's not. Although scholars know it, but I think knowledge of what happened, what transpired in Yugoslavia during World War II and during the Holocaust was to a large extent suppressed or kept from general public information and even from Holocaust institutions in the 1990s, because it didn't conform to U.S. foreign policy. But in any case, what happened in Yugoslavia was the Yugoslav government, which was then ruled by monarchy, the Serbian monarchy, was refused at first. Agreed to sign a tripartite pact with Hitler, and then the regent was overthrown, and the young prince was installed in power, and so Hitler invaded Yugoslavia and divided it up into about 12 parts. But he gave most of Croatia and Bosnia to a Croatian fascist regime known as the Ustasha. The Ustasha, which bears a lot of similarities historically to the Ukrainian fascist movement, got going in the 1920s, first under Italian fascist support, and then in the 1930s under Nazi support. And it was a project for creating a greater Croatian homeland and state, but to do so, it would be under a fascist political regime with the fascist ideology of extreme racism, social Darwinism, eugenics, and also concentration camps. So when Hitler did invade Yugoslavia, he allowed this fascist regime to be established in Croatia and Bosnia under the Croatian Führer Ante Pavelić in April of 1941, and immediately concentration camps were established to murder not just the Jewish population, but also the Serbian and the Gypsy or Roma population. All three of these ethnic groups were deemed to be non-citizens and people that needed to be done away with. And part of the problem was that the territory on which the Croatian fascist state was established did not have a majority Croatian population. So, in effect, what the Croats wanted to do was to purge itself of these non-Croatian, non-Catholic elements and establish a pure Croatian Catholic state. I should also add that it was a clerical fascist state in which the Croatian Catholic clergy were integrated into the highest into all areas of the political and economic system, including in the concentration camps. And in the end, there were about 30 camps established in the independent state of Croatia from 1941 to 1945, the fascist state, and the biggest of which was Jasenovac, where historians estimate 600,000 people were killed. Some put the figure slightly higher, some put it lower, but there's no question that hundreds of thousands of people were killed there. About 35,000 Jews, perhaps 500 or 600,000 Serbs, and probably 100,000 Romas. So the Ustasha were, in a sense, very successful in carrying out a final solution, but a triple genocide against Jews, Serbs, and Gypsies in their territory.
All right, Professor, now regarding Ukraine, are the key players of the revolutionary movement that came to power with the support of the West, are they neo-Nazis and or fascists?
Some of them are. Some of them are. Certainly, you mentioned right sector. I would say also that Svoboda is another political party in the Ukraine that is also fascist and deeply anti-Russian and anti-Jewish in its philosophy. And both of these political movements, which did not do well in the elections recently, but nevertheless still hold powerful positions in the government, are, in a sense, the military wing of this regime in Kiev that has come to power under U.S. tutelage. And I think that
kind of like the brown shirts of Germany.
I would compare I think that the Ukrainian fascist movement has its own history and it has its own traditions. In a sense, Ukrainian fascism never died. It was never allowed to die, even though it was defeated in World War II.
Is Sloboda and Right Sector, are these the knee crackers?
Yes.
They're the rib
they go
breakers.
Out with the official Ukrainian military, and they in a sense, I mean, they deploy. The Ukrainian government is fully aware that Right Sector forces and Svoboda forces go out with the regular military and commit atrocities against the civilian population, as they did recently in Odessa.
I was just going to ask you, were they the ones behind that horrific atrocity in Odessa where people were burned alive?
Over 40 people were burned alive in that trade union building.
And they found chloroform in the building.
Oh, I've seen the photographs. It's absolutely ghastly.
Well, if there was chloroform in the building, the people in the building were put to sleep before they burned the building down.
Yes, and it does appear that there were also instances where they were shot. Even
people, it says they tried to come out of the building, jump out of the windows. There were Ukrainian men shooting the people fleeing the burning building.
Well, Rick, let me just say this: that historians know what happened to Odessa in World War II, and what happened in Odessa in World War II is exactly what happened in Odessa in 2014, and it's no coincidence, because in late 41, when Odessa was captured by the Romanian fascist military, there was a military strike against them, and then they carried out a very similar type of burning to death of civilian population, primarily Jewish civilians, in Odessa, which I think was really the model, the very thing that the Right Sector tried to imitate just recently. When this in 2014.
So they just took a page out of the old Nazi playbook.
Absolutely. It's just too similar, too strikingly identical for it not to have been imitated deliberately.
The Russians obviously have a legitimate reason for being queasy and nervous about a flare-up of Nazism and fascism on their border. Don't you agree?
Well, of course, Rick, this is anyone who has family ties, as I do, in fact, to the Ukraine. It's something that has transpired in recent generations, where the Western Ukrainian nationalists, who not all of them, but there is a large number of them who have historically viewed Russians and Jews as enemies, as enemy people to be killed and removed from the Ukraine. It's just something that we know from our own family histories of what transpired both at the end of World War I during the Russian Civil War, and then again in World War II. Everyone is quite aware. The problem that we see right now is that the United States intervened in the Ukraine and started this crisis. If the United States, as you very astutely pointed out, Robert Kagan's wife, Victoria Nuland, with the assistance of the American ambassador to the Ukraine, Jeffrey Piat, had not orchestrated this overthrow of a democratically elected government and then financed the right-wing militants who are indeed fascists, I think that there might have been a chance for to avoid all of this conflict that we see today. But you see, once you destroy the very foundations for any kind of democratic process, which is precisely what the United States did in the Ukraine, how can there be any real chance for opposing sides to iron out their grievances?
Why is the West supporting Nazis? Why?
That's a very good question, and there's a very clear-cut answer to it. Let me just start by saying there was a very interesting writer, a very controversial writer named Hannah Arendt, who pointed out in the first volume of The Origins of Totalitarianism that imperialism was, in fact, late 19th century imperialism was the mother of fascism. It provided the experiences of genocide, atrocities, concentration camps, the ideology of social Darwinism, eugenics, racial theory, and that. And if we look back to 1915, we see that the Ottoman Empire, in its last days, carried out the first genocide of the 20th century against the Armenians. And now, what happened in the post-World War I period is actually even during at the very end of World War I, when Germany occupied the Ukraine in 1918. In April of 1918, Germany occupied the Ukraine, established a government, or backed an independent Ukrainian state that was violently anti-Russian and anti-Semitic, and was killing Jews and Russians even at that time, and called and outlawed the Russian language. The German Imperial Army, which itself was not carrying out atrocities, saw the advantage even at that time of using a racist, ultranationalist, and murderous regime to keep itself in power. And of course, that lesson was then used by Hitler when he invaded the Soviet Union again and occupied the Ukraine again in 1941. So you see, the origins of this is that, and of course the same thing happened in Yugoslavia. The Nazis used these fascist movements that they set up in Croatia or in the Ukraine to help to serve as more or less proxies for themselves and as props for them to take over more territory. In the 1990s, we see the United States breaking up Yugoslavia. In Yugoslavia, the United States helped. I mean, Yugoslavia itself, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, would not have fallen, would not have disintegrated had it not been for foreign intervention. The United States, Germany, and some other countries provided aid to neo